Good afternoon, everyone. Christine here again. It is May the 14th afternoon, and I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to give you a little an update on an update. I had an update that I did, and that was on Christine and Julie update death of Indigenous woman, and it was a comment today on this particular one that I had got, and I wanted to share it with my viewers because this came in from one of my viewers. I wanted to make it perhaps a little more clear. I did address one of them, and that the reason I did not change the title was the fact that we have lessons to learn from this. Now, I'm going to read the comment. Please change title if she wasn't murdered, and homeless woman is important, not just Indigenous. Now, one of the reasons I didn't put homeless woman in was because the day that I did the update on it was the day after that it was reported by the homeless people that she'd been murdered, and of course the next day I got contact with some of my contacts who got in contact with their contacts, and it came back that she hadn't been murdered. So it was extremely important to get it out. So I always put the dates up when I do every viewing, or I try to. When I do a taping, I try to remember to at the very beginning. So that's helpful. And it's all, and don't get me wrong either, all homeless people are just as important. But with the Indigenous community, after 150 years under colonialism and the situation with the murdered and missing women, no matter how it was reported, it was extremely important, whether she was murdered or not, that we were able to mourn our sisters. Because when it comes in, we're not often informed in our culture. And it's very difficult. Now, the reason, Julie, it's been very difficult. Like, I've got some Indigenous background in myself, and it's been very difficult for Julie because Julie's father was French and her mother was full Blackfoot. So she's been suffering terribly, and we're all trying to deal with the fact that whether it's through an overdose or whatever, we've just lost another sister. So we're all grieving. And the other Indigenous women on the streets right now, from what I understand, are still crying over it. They're still really, really upset. With the rumors going around that this poor woman was murdered. It was important to get it out because they still believe, and this is what is still being believed right today on the streets, and we're trying to definitely correct it. But this is coming from the street people. And that's why I quickly put up that film, or that story that I wrote, to explain to people just how bad gossip is and that. But I had made it very clear that it was possible gossip. It was coming from the street people, not from proper authorities. And even at the end, because of what's happened and knowing what the Indigenous culture is, I've seen reprisals, possibly. I don't want reprisals against the police or anyone else because it makes them look like they're liars. And we have a lot of that going on because there's so much mistrust with the Indigenous community. It's extremely important, and that's why I use that story for communication and just how awry communication can go. And but I also made sure that I didn't want any reprisals or anybody to take the law into their own hands. So if you also check my video, you'll also find that I clearly stated if anyone had any information at all, please call the police or please call Crime Stoppers. So this is some of the stuff I'm trying to clear up a little bit. But the Indigenous culture is very, very complicated because it's so layered after 150 years. And even the Indigenous culture, because of it, is even fighting within itself. And we're trying to find our way out, and just like everyone else is. And with the community, we're trying to find our way out. And we want to be friends with our homeless people, but it's pretty difficult when I can accept the homeless, but we cannot accept their behavior patterns. And they have to understand that. And some of the problems that we're having, and I'm finding, which I asked Julie about when she got back to talk to me, and I asked her, well, I remember in one of the videos, you were, I don't know if it was you or Diane, but one of you mentioned at the time that they've only got a mental health worker in there once a week. According to Julie, well, it might be maybe once a week, or it actually might be just once a month. But then she says she hasn't seen workers around for a while, even in 454, the mental health workers, because nobody's come in for a while, and it seems, is it cutbacks, or is it because a lot of the people are too scared to talk to them, the mental health workers? And when a death, like any kind of a death happens, or any kind of thing, like let's say a school shooting occurs, for an example, we have grief counselors. Something happens, they come running into the hospital, into the schools right away to help the students out. But what I'm finding down here is when we have deaths, and we've had so many overdoses down here, there's no mental health for these people on the street to try and take it all in, so that it would help with the rumors coming around. So would it be a good idea, perhaps? I'm just throwing something out, maybe with our outreach teams, could we get a mental health worker when a death comes down like this and is so shocking, just to help see if they'll talk to a mental health worker? Some cases, Julie says, there's a lot of them just won't. There's some that no matter what you do, they're just never going to want help. But then there's others that are just on the borderline that are kind of looking for the help, but they just don't know how to quite make that first step forward. So maybe we have to offer it to us. But I do know that we have an outreach team. We have a mental health unit at Wabano. And I'm certainly hoping that maybe our outreach team from Wabano can bring one of our mental health workers in to help our Indigenous people down here that are on the streets. Now, we do have an Indigenous shelter here in Ottawa as well, but it's usually packed and most people can't get in. So they fall into our mainstream shelters as well. But to cool it down and to help people, and I think every time we do have a death like this, treat it as if it's a traumatic experience for school children and that they have to go through. Because no matter what, you see the rest of society being offered trauma. Grief counselors, they're being offered. What are we offering the homeless people? I don't see this. Something's wrong. We have to change our way. And that's one of the reasons I'm so glad that I'm gonna put a video out shortly too on just how our community officers are stepping up to help, and I'm thankful for that right now. So I'm just going to give you a little hint of what's to come, and thank you again for listening to me. And I always appreciate my listeners, and I always appreciate the comments. And if something's not understood, why I do something, I'm always happy to try and explain it, but sometimes I have to think a little bit, because when certain things have to be done in a certain way when you're dealing cultural wise, and it's not just the Indigenous people, because we have so many hate crimes, because we are a multicultural country, and we have to realize that. So we have to realize that we have to respect everyone else, their own cultures, and we have to find a way to live together. So again, thank you, and I enjoyed talking to you, and have a nice day. And we shall talk to you again very shortly with something else in the works coming up very shortly. Okay, bye-bye and take care.